Hi everybody, so today I've got a video talking about how to get started with Eldar. It's a common question I get. I've had a lot of people messaging me, asking in comment sections, hey, how do I get started with this army? What should I get? That kind of stuff. I mean, those questions in general are usually very broad because it really depends on what you want to do with your army. However, that said, there are some sensible ways to get started, to get playing, and we're going to talk about some of those. What I got here is a representation of the Eldar battle force. You see that in your local GW store, pretty good value, and it comes with 4 separate things. Dire Avengers, troop choice, Guardians, troop choice, Warwalker, heavy support choice, and a Wave Serpent, which is a dedicated transport. 3 of these 4 things are outstanding. The Warwalker, really good. The Wave Serpent, staple of tons of mechanized armies. Dire Avengers, outstanding troop choice. They're going to be the bulk of most of your troops in the army. The Guardians, they're not terrible. They're definitely fieldable. They're playable, absolutely. But, these are not the kind of unit that you expect to get very much out of on the tabletop, at least in the current rules. That's not to say you can't use them very well. In fact, you can build armies around these guys. I'm just saying, for a beginner, for a person who's starting with Eldar, don't expect these guys to do that much on the tabletop. That said, they do have torsos and heads which are extremely useful for converting later on. So you can actually, even if you don't actually build these guys to use them as Guardians, you can actually use them to convert stuff. For instance, to do a jet bike. Very common conversion is to do an Eldar jet bike. You take the Guardian torso. That is a, hold on a sec. Let me just try to get this to focus in on here. Stupid iPhone. This is actually the torso of a Guardian that I've put on a regular Eldar jet bike, and I think it actually looks a lot better than the insane heads and tiny, tiny torsos they have on the actual jet bikes. So those will prove useful regardless. This is a solid starting buy. And what's great about the battle force is you can always add a second battle force. So here we got 2 battle forces now. And this is what it looks like. You got 2 dedicated transports, 20 Guardians, 10 Dire Avengers, and 2 Warwalkers. If you were to, for instance, add an HQ, like a Farseer, here we go, the only metal model in this entire pile that we see here, you would basically have a 1,000-point army. So 2 battle forces, 1 Farseer, 1,000-point army, give or take. There'll be a little bit of room for you to put upgrades in, and you'll be able to play around with it. If you are going to get the Farseer, you can get the basic Farseer, or if you get the Farseer and Retinue kit, or the Farseer and Warlocks, then that'll let you actually attach these Warlocks, maybe 2 of these guys, to these squads, if you do plan to use the Guardian squads. They attach to the Guardian squads if possible. You can also, potentially use them as a little mini squad of their own, which is a whole other can of beans. But pretty good starting point is 2 battle forces and a Farseer, so that you have your HQ requirement. Not too bad. 1,000 points right there, give or take. Goes up to probably about 1,250 if you really kit yourself out. Now, the one thing I would highly recommend this if you're just starting with Eldar, you haven't even put a single figure together, I recommend buying some magnets. You can get these tiny little magnets all over the place online. You see that little outline there of the magnet. And these little magnets are very cheap. They're very plentiful. Just Google it up. I mean, type in magnets, small magnets, buy magnets, whatever it is. You can go to sites like K&J Magnetics. You can go to a lot of wargaming sites have them. What do the magnets do? They let you, first of all, create swappable weapons. So you can trade these out for a different weapon type, especially on things like Warwalkers. You swap it out, put a different gun on there. On the platforms for the Guardians, interestingly enough, these weapons, when you clip them off, will be the exact same ones that go on over here. You see, so you can, that gives you a lot of flexibility, and it's a really great thing to have because you're a beginner. You're just learning the game. You don't really know what weapon is the best. You don't really know whether you're going to like the guns that people tell you to put on your vehicles or whether it'll turn out that you actually prefer different ones. So I highly recommend magnetizing things. You can also magnetize things like turrets. So for instance, I've got a magnet there, magnet down here, put it on here. Makes it very easy for transport. Magnets are just great all around. The Exarch here that we have over here, he's also magnetized. I've got his hand comes off. This one comes off as well. I cannot do this one-handed. I'll try. So, it's just his hand just comes off right there. He's magnetized, right? It's just a great freedom to have. It'll take a little bit of extra effort, but it's definitely worth it, and it means your codex is, or your army is also going to be codex proof, because if a new codex comes out and makes all your previous guns crappy and the ones you don't have on your vehicles better, well, hey, you're ready to roll. Highly recommend magnetizing. Now, I already sort of talked about the Farseer a little bit, but I just want to go back and talk about him a little more. You know, why do I think this guy should be your first HQ choice for your army? Is because he's very fundamentally Eldar. And the Farseer, you know, besides being probably one of the better choices in the HQ section of the Codex, it's just going to really help you put up a fight in those early games while you're still learning the game. He's going to give you powers that boost your abilities. He's going to essentially make your entire army better. And it's just a great way to learn how to play Eldar, to actually use those psychic powers to benefit your army so that you can actually get a handle on how the army plays. I really recommend you take a Farseer as your first HQ. Now, moving on, in terms of troop choices, some of the best troop choices that you should really focus on, especially when you're starting the game, but you know, even veterans, I mean, use these guys, is Dire Avengers. There's three other troop choices in the Eldar Codex. They're all kind of situational, although the jet bikes are quite excellent. We'll talk about those in a sec. But for a standard Eldar army, to really get a handle on how the army plays, Dire Avengers are a very good bet. You know, Guardians are hard to use. They get shot up very easily. They seem cheap, but once you add the heavy guns, they're quite expensive, and the ballistic skill is not great on the heavy gun. You know, there's all these little niggles about them, but these guys are just a solid choice. So I would recommend getting, you know, maybe another another unit box of these guys. You know, you want to have maybe 10 to 15 to 20 Dire Avengers to be the core of your army when you start, assuming that's the kind of Eldar army you want to build. If instead you're looking for a faster army, you want to play with jet bikes, you know, that's a very popular thing these days. You see a lot of really cool jet bike armies. It's kind of what got me into Eldar. You can definitely play with these guys. It's not cheap to start. I mean, these jet bikes retail for like 18 bucks Canadian. I don't know how much it costs in your country. A lot of money, and they come with really ugly riders. Like this rider is a Guardian torso, so you know you're going to have to buy some extra Guardian torsos, or maybe use the ones from the Battle Force kit to make them. Otherwise, you're going to have some really ugly looking jet bikes. So I really recommend doing that. You can definitely do that, in which case it still doesn't hurt to have the Battle Force, because 5 of these guys, 10 of these guys are still going to potentially be useful. You're still going to want to maybe throw them into transport and have that flying alongside these guys. So Battle Force, again, very solid buy for Eldar. Now, something you need to know about Warwalkers when you buy them, and this is the same with the Battle Force, and it's the same if you buy them singly, separately, you know, in their own box. They do not come with 2 of each weapon. They come with 1 of every weapon type, so 1 scatter laser, 1 missile launcher, 1 shuriken cannon, 1, you know, bright lance, and so on, which is an incredibly annoying thing, because generally you do not want to arm them with different guns. You want to have each guy have the same guns, especially in a unit. You generally want to have the unit have, you know, mostly have all the same guns. There's some different schools of thought around that, but it's very annoying if you want to have one Warwalker walking around and you want to have 2 guns that are the same range, same strength. So how do you get around that problem? Very simple. You can buy heavy weapons sprues right from GW, if that's your thing. You can also just buy them on eBay. There's a lot of resellers on eBay that will sell just Eldar heavy weapons sprues. You know, a couple of bucks, pretty good savings there. And it's a good idea if you're going to do that, if you're going to play Eldar, once you've got an idea of the kind of army you have, buy up a whole bunch of extra weapon sprues, because then you'll have extra weapons to put on these guys, you'll have extra weapons to throw down on vehicles and things, you know. It's not a bad idea to have, especially if you're using Warwalkers. Okay, so let's talk about playing your starting 1,000-point army if you're going with 2 battle forces. You know, this army is a reasonable army. It's got some options to it. The one thing you're going to do is, because you don't have a lot of anti-tank, you're going to have to put some kind of anti-tank guns on your 2 Wave Serpents. You're probably going to pick something like Bright Lances, Twin-Linked Bright Lances, or Twin-Linked Eldar missile launchers. On these guys, you're going to want to have a combination of either missile launchers and scatter lasers, or just missile launchers. You know, you're going to want to have some anti-tank here. Chances are you're going to either want to have a missile launcher on these guys or a scatter laser on on those Guardians there, if you are going to use them to actually play. Over here, you have no anti-tank options, so you're probably going to want to put your Farseer with these guys. A couple ways to play it. You can split this into 2 units of 5 guys each, have small units inside the vehicles, Guardians on foot, Farseer with one of those groups, And these guys can either be a squadron or they can be separate. You can play around with that. Or you can have an entire unit, a group of 10 with a Farseer inside one vehicle, a bunch of Guardians in another vehicle to keep them safe, one unit of Guardians on foot, and again, either a squadron or separate. A couple of options for what you're doing there. The next thing you're going to consider expanding out is getting a unit of Fire Dragons. These are an elite choice. They have melta weapons. They're a really crucial way of taking out vehicles with some measure of certainty. You know, without that, you don't have a lot of certainty in terms of ways of taking out vehicles. These guys make a pretty good show of blowing up a vehicle, especially if you're facing things like Land Raiders. You don't want to be stuck just adding nothing but Bright Lances to your army. So you know, it's a very solid buy. They also they kill everything. I mean, they have strength 8 AP1 guns, right? They can go after heavy infantry. They can go after monstrous creatures. You know, they're just a very versatile troop, and they're worth flying around. Now they are going to have to take up one of your transports. So either you got to get them another transport, or make room for them in one of your starting 2 transports. Keep that in mind. Falcons are a great way to get these guys around the field. Another Wave Serpent's a great way to get them around the field. You're going to have to put them in a transport, but they are worth investing in. You don't need to go overboard. You don't need 3 units of these guys right away. I mean, a lot of competitive armies just have 1, maybe 2 units of them. But definitely I would recommend getting one of these units. They are a joy to play with because they are such a certainty. In terms of heavy support choices, if you buy the Fire Prism, now this is an old Fire Prism. This is metal parts, a tiny little crystal. The new Fire Prism has a really long barrel, looks very cool. That kit actually allows you to build either a Night Spinner or a Fire Prism. Very effective use of money if you're just starting out to get that kit. What does it come with? It comes with only 1 turret. However, it has parts for both the guns. The Fire Prism, the new gun, has a short bit here and a long barrel over here. And this is the Night Spinner turret. So if you magnetize at these points here, you'll be able to swap out between the 2 tanks. So you'll have 2 heavy support choice options for the price of 1. Pretty good thing. The other heavy support choice I recommend you start with if you're looking to get some more heavy support is get yourself a Falcon. Falcon is a transport similar to a Wave Serpent, carries about 5 or 6 guys, and it's just a very resilient transport. When you get holofields on it, as you might have seen on my tactics video, it becomes very, very resilient, a really good choice of a transport. Great way to get these guys to their target. Great way to keep a unit of these guys surviving inside the vehicle, holding an objective. Very, very useful choice. Alright, so I hope this has been helpful in getting you started about thinking about how to field Eldar. And, you know, good luck starting your army. Feel free to message me or put something in the comments if you have any questions. And good luck playing Eldar. Enjoy it. It's a great army, and you know, even all these years on, it's still a very competitive book, and apparently new books coming out soon too. So, not a bad time to get started. I'm sure you'll get some nice new toys. Thanks, guys. Take care.